You're listening to Within Tolerance, a podcast for machinists by a machinist. I'm your host, Dylan Jackson from Protean Machining, and this week I'm joined by Chris Zappettini of Zappettini Consulting. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Great. Thanks for taking the time to come on the show.
Yeah, I'm fucking pumped.
Well, I know we met at IMTS, and, finally, I know we bounced around and missed each other by 30 feet 2 days in a row.
Yeah, I think we we had a couple glancing moments where it's like, hey, I gotta go. And you were like, yeah, I'm fucking running.
Well, so for those who don't know your company, where can they find you online? What do you do? All that good stuff.
Finding us online. You got LinkedIn, Zappettini Consulting, IG, zap.consulting, and then our website, zappettiniconsulting.com. And what we do, the easiest way to say it is we help manufacturers improve productivity and efficiency through design, engineering, and automation. So we'll do a variety of things for customers. Like right now in Idaho, for this company X2 Development Group, which is what I've been posting a lot about recently. We me and another one of my guys were stationed here, and we're their in-house engineers basically. So we do a lot of their programming, fixture design. We'll do the setup, runoff, create a documentation package, so that when we leave, it's really dialed in for them. We'll do it on every machine in their facility. So they have a bunch of Haas UMCs, a bunch of Robo Drills, Nakamuras, Eurotech, whatever, doesn't matter. And it's kind of very extended. But then on a more granular level, we'll do straight just contract programming, remote contract programming, create really solid Mastercam files or Fusion files, depending on what the customer is using, and then shoot that off. And it takes us a little bit longer, I would say, than your average in-house guy. But that's because we have to be really dialed. Because if we're sending you a program, it has to fucking work. Otherwise, we're gonna have some problems. And then kind of anywhere in between there, we're doing a process redesign for a company in California on a Mazak Palatech system, which is a lot of fun. It's huge. It's this huge project. We're taking their highest runners, redesigning all the fixturing for it, creating a tool library for it. We're making we're using their machines to make all the fixtures, and then we're running it off on the machine. And so far, we've completed 2 of the parts, and killed 40% of the cycle time on both of those parts, which is a big difference. And it's mostly just a reimagining of how they're holding it currently. A lot we use, Mighty Bite fixtures a lot of the time. I go for really simple, it's so simple. I've had customers be like, there's no fucking way this is going to work. And it's just trust the process. Because they're used to holding on to a lot of the part, I have one guy who is holding on to it was a 1.5 inch bar. He's grabbing half of it in 2 Kurt vices. And we switched it up to grabbing 100 thou on the bottom with Uniforce clamps and Talon grips. And he's like, there's no way this is going to hold. We're really getting after it. And it's okay, well, let's try. And we doubled his speeds and feeds. And we doubled his speeds and feeds and changed some of the tool paths a little bit. For the most part, we left everything the same. Held great. We increased his throughput 1,000%.
Oh,
that was a fun one. Yeah.
That's super cool.
That was a Trinity turnkey. And then
so how long do these contracts usually last for you? What's a typical 6 months, a year?
The GCM one, the big Mazak one, we're about a year into that one. It's a lot of back and forth. The X2 one here in Idaho, it started in Utah, and we just hit 2 years on that one. Yeah, so we've been helping them develop this gun and the production system for 2 years. That's actually my first contract. That's what got me to take the leap. My buddy Jason hit me up randomly and was like, hey, you want to come work for me for like 3 months? And I was like, sure. Uh, and then I quit my job, and then now here we are, and I got 3 guys.
Well, this might be a good time then to get into your backstory. So, how did you get to where you are now?
Okay. So I got into machining, manufacturing in general when I went to ASU. So I grew up in California, didn't do anything, like had like zero mechanical inclination, like whatsoever, just like played video games and did whatever. And I was like kind of into cars, and ASU had a automotive engineering program at the Polytechnic campus at Mesa. And I was like, that seems kind of cool. Um, and so what I didn't realize, like until I got there, is that I don't know if they still are, but they were a Haas Technical Education Center. So we had like 4, like a VF3 with a trunnion, a VF2, another old like clapped out VF2, and a lathe. Um, and like I didn't even know what a CNC machine was. I was just like, that's pretty fucking cool. Um, and so I went down there to do mechanical engineering, and like part of the course was, because it was a technology program, is very hands-on, not super math heavy. Like you take like Calc 1, Calc 2, and like stats, and that's it. So no like differential equations. It's really nice. It's every professor had industry experience, so they were bringing a lot to the table. And part of the coursework was you did like a semester of like manual machining and a semester of CNC machining. So
Oh,
like
that's awesome.
it was great. It's the program, like I like to disappoint anyone who's like getting hyped about this program. Like it does not exist anymore, and it's a fucking shame, because it was great. Like me and all my buddies who went there, like we've all had like pretty rad careers. Um,
I think I have a
uh,
friend of mine, and I think he might listen to this. So if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, Ryan. But I think he graduated with that program as well,
yeah,
and he loved it. He works for one of the big 3 now, and like he pursued that and just kept going.
yeah, it's really cool. It was really cool. And so once I took that CNC machining class, I was fucking hooked. I was like, I'm double majored in mechanical and manufacturing. I didn't actually technically get the manufacturing degree because it was killed before I graduated.
Oh no,
So I have like a product development and manufacturing technology degree or something. Um,
works out
but
for what you're doing now.
yeah, I mean, nobody cares about the degrees anyway.
No,
At this point, it's just like I have enough of like a reputation that's like, okay, you can make my shit, so let's go. And that was like, and really, they had this professor there. His name is Treon Giorgio. He doesn't work there anymore. He doesn't teach there. He teaches at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo now. And that dude, he was young. I think he was like in his early 30s at the time. And man, he was so fucking passionate about it that he got me passionate about it. And I like lived in that shop. Like it was beautiful. And I got a little bit of like hubris there. Me and a buddy, we like owned a machine for like a couple years. Didn't really work out. Ended up selling it because like we were trying to go to school full time and run this shop, and like I wasn't here or there, so gave up the machine, finished the degrees, went to school, or like went to work in like South Carolina for a couple years, and then went back to didn't like or for a couple months, didn't like that, went back to Arizona, um, and worked at this little shop called RM Garrison, which was in North Phoenix, Deer Valley Air Park at the time. Now he's like way huge, but he was like had just bought this business, just started the CNC side of things. So I came in, I was working with another programmer there, and I like, it's one of those things like you don't realize how much you don't know until you start going, and you're like, oh shit, yeah. And so it's just like me, 2 VF2 mills or something, and then a lathe, and he just let me go hog ass wild there for like 8 months. And I got like there's still some products that I had like helped him develop that he still sells, which is pretty cool. Um, like mostly on the aesthetic side. And and like that was a fantastic like intro into like um, excuse me, into like manufacturing and like CNC machining like professionally. That's like where I say like I really started, because everything before that I was just fucking around. Um, but then that led me to methods, and that's like that's what really got me to like where I am right now. Is like Shane gave me the foundation at RM Garrison, and then methods is like what really like what a it was a super fantastic experience to work there, because like you're always working on new machines. You're always like you're in like every shop in Phoenix, like either like doing a machine like implementation, or just quote, or like just quoting, and you just see all these different um, ways that people are machining, and you just kind of like you start bringing in like adding to this bag of tricks, and
Oh
like
yeah.
you just have this huge array all of a sudden of like things bouncing around your mind, and like this huge toolbox that's like you might not use it all the time, but it's like there's one little thing where you're like, oh, I can pull that out, and now
Hmm.
like I can throw that in there.
So are
um
you an AE for them or just
yeah,
a tech, or
I was
how
an
does that work?
applications engineer.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started as an applications engineer, but they put me in service for like 6 months because I just didn't know anything, so they wanted me to get more familiar with the machines. And we were like doing installs and like troubleshooting. Kind of ripped apart some like really old Nakamuras, which was fucking wild. Like ripping the whole like turret assembly, like not just like the turret itself, but like the whole thing off of the x-axis, because it was so old and like
Oh
froze up that we
jeez.
needed to like relieve the pressure, and like and then clean it all up. That was a cool one. And then from there, then there was a new GM that took over, Bob Nakash, very instrumental in my growth, because he was a very technical oriented sales guy. And so he gave me like some skills, like how to talk to people essentially, and how to like navigate this like the machine tool industry. Because at the end of the day, like what you don't realize, like it, or what you don't think about is like it doesn't matter if you did everything correct. If the customer's pissed, the customer's pissed. So like you could tell them till you're blue in the face, like I did the right thing. They don't fucking care. So you just have to,
Right.
you like you're right. We fucked up. I We'll fix it. We'll fix it. Um, and and that's like you just have to like you're just like constantly falling on a sword essentially, and going in and just trying to like solve their problems. So it gives you like it was, and he really like instilled that in me, which was good. um, and he just he made me, about after a year of working for methods, he made me like the applications manager,
Oh wow.
which was
That's
cool
great.
because Bruce Field had retired. There was kind of an opening for it, and he liked me. I was just like, he let me do anything I wanted, pretty much. Like I was able to grow very quickly there, because he was just like, yeah, do it. So I came into methods having only ran like vertical Haas's and like 2-axis lathes, and within a year I was doing like horizontal machining, a little bit of 5-axis, and like was like programming Nakamuras, like multi-axis stuff, because he was just letting me go. I was like, let me do it, and he's like, okay, fine, go ahead. uh, and that's like that's like so invaluable, because it could have been like, I've seen it happen to guys where they just get absolutely pigeonholed. And I mean, you talk to a lot of people who they want to do things, but they're not vocal about wanting about that, and so like they want it, but they're not doing anything to make it happen, and so they just
Right.
kind of like they just like feel like they just stay the course in the worst way possible, and there's this like seething anger inside of them because they're not like getting anywhere.
Right.
And
I've
there's
known
just
quite a few people like that. They don't
yeah
realize, like, you not only have to be a self advocate in this industry, you have to be an annoying self-advocate. Like, so much so that like people, like the second that somebody needs something that you want to do, that you're the first person they think of.
Yeah, like I tell people all the time, you just have to be fucking aggressive. Like,
Yeah.
and it's scary because like you don't like you're kind of taught to not be aggressive, really, but and which is like I feel like people that are telling you to not be aggressive are the guys who are aggressive, and they're like, don't fuck with me, you know.
Right.
Like it's
Right.
just
Exactly.
it's like this it's passive aggressive. They're like, yeah, no, you just want to like don't worry, we'll get you there, we'll get you there,
Right.
just
Don't rock
don't
the boat.
yeah. I mean, wow, that guy's like fucking tipping the boat over. um yeah. And I got kind of like applications is really cool because of that, but it's like the more like where there's like this huge disconnect between like manufacturing and like the machine tool industry, where people have this conception of applications engineers that's like, oh, you work on these machines, you must be the absolute best at making parts on those machines. And that's just not the case, because applications guys don't make parts. Like, they can make parts and they occasionally will make parts, but like an application engineer's job is to know how to use that machine, know the ins and outs of that machine very well, and be able to support you in making parts. And so like you see guys get in trouble constantly. It's like, oh, like taking on turnkeys and things like that. Where it's like, oh yeah, we'll make that part for you. They just don't know how to process parts. I mean, you have some guys that are really fucking good at it. There's this dude back east at Methods, Tom Menard, probably the best applications engineer I've ever worked with. He knows the ins and outs of like every fucking machine. He can do automation, like 5-axis, mill turn, everything. He's just like really good at it. But he's like a unicorn, you know. Most guys are just they like I know guys like they couldn't make a part to save their life, but you're like, how do I do this like really fucky thing? And they're like, oh yeah, use this function, but you have to do it this way, and it has to be between these two codes, and then it'll work. And you're like, cool, thanks. And they're like, yeah, got it. And they're just doing that like while they're driving in their car or something. They just like
Right.
know it off the top of their head, and it's like, okay, that's cool. Thanks. And then you keep it moving. This is like very long-winded, but
I think that's an important point to make, though. I think a lot of people do view AEs as like the expert on the process, when really you have to bring the process to an AE and they can tell you how to do it on their machine.
yeah,
Like, they're a machine expert. They're not your process expert.
exactly. And so like that was a Bob Nakash thing, where he was very candid with customers, and he's like, listen, we know the machine, you know the parts. We like, in order for this to be successful, we have to work together. Um, and I take that philosophy to where I'm at right now. And the company that I'm running, because it's like, unless we're starting from absolute scratch on both sides, where like they don't know the part and we don't know the part, and we can just kind of do whatever we want, it behooves us to come into a project like we are for sure going to crush. Like, we don't need your help, we're just going to crush everything that we're doing, because it's like, I need to understand what your struggles are with the part so that I can fix those problems. Like, what is it about this thing that you need to improve? Like, where are we starting? Where are we going? Because you have guys that's like, oh no, I have no struggles with this part whatsoever. It's a 2-op part. And you're like, okay, cool. You want to show me that process? And he's like, yeah. And it's actually like a 4-op part. Because it's like,
Right.
yeah, we do this and then we do that, and then we have all these clamp changes, and our throughput's great, it's so good. And it's like, is it like, so you have a guy like slave to this machine, and it's like, yeah, no, it works out fine. And you're like, okay. So and that was like the case at like GCM, where we took a part off of a vertical with all these clamp changes. It was a 45-minute part and had all these clamp changes to get it going. And we did it in 2 operations, no clamp changes, just 1-op, 2-op, and then cut that cycle time to like 25 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah. And so that's like, that's a high runner for them. So that's like just throughput. Um, and because it was on a vertical, we're putting it on a horizontal tombstone, so we can get 8 on a pallet, so a guy can run 8 at a time without having to touch anything. Just high density fixturing.
That's killer.
You love to see it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you were application manager. How did you get from there to your own business?
All right. So we got a couple more years there.
Okay.
So like I got like I thought really wanted to make parts, like big time. So I like kind of quit methods for about 5 months and went to work at a startup in San Francisco, Plethora.
Yeah.
That's where, so I worked there for a little while. And I have there's this theme throughout my career where I like go somewhere and I'm like, I'm just going to like, relax or whatever. I'm just going to like, I was the manager. It's really stressful. I don't really want to do this anymore. I'm going to go, just be like a fucking programmer somewhere. And I've done this like 3 or 4 times and it never fucking works out. Like I just have like there's this drive or whatever where it's like I get there, I don't like it, I got to fix it, or whatever. Like I'm just going. So I went there, was a programmer for a while. I met like almost everybody that I met there in the manufacturing side. I'm like still really good friends with. Like one of the guys who I met there, his name's Chris O'Brien. We call him Scoob. He works for me now.
Nice.
Daryl Vaughn, who I met there, like he works for Dennis now. So I just saw him the other day when I popped over there. Chris Daniel, he works at Hadrian. Michael Von Southen also works at Hadrian. So like all these guys, like I made like some really, really good friends there. It was one of the worst jobs I've ever had. But
really?
Yeah,
just quality of life or what?
Yeah, quality of life. It just wasn't a good fit. So I got out. I mean, like quick philosophical side tangent is like when you work for some place, like everyone always talks about like, are you a good fit for us? Are you a good fit for us? Blah, blah, blah. But like, that's a 2-way street, right? Like the company has to be a good fit for you also. In order for it to like there's still, we're transitioning away from this like weird, company loyalty thing where it's like, you give us everything and maybe we'll help you out. But like, it is absolutely a 2-way street, and you kind of have to like keep that in mind. Is like if the company is not doing anything for you, and like it just like you hate your life to go there like every day, why are you still working there? Like if you're if it's not advancing your career and like they're just like dangling carrots in front of your face or whatever, like why?
Yeah,
like
because I don't remember his
loyalty?
name, but there's some guy on Instagram. I think it's like Felonious something. And he makes a bunch of reels that are about
Felonious falafel.
Yeah. Like, you giving us a pizza party because we did well? Cool. Yeah, okay.
The pizza party one is like it's fucking classic. I love it. But yeah, so I just like I don't have it on like a resume or anything because it was like a very short stint away. Kind of like what it made me realize is like I am really passionate about, like in a weird way, like I really, really like the machine tool industry. Just like you're like kind of behind the curtain a little bit from like regular manufacturing. Like you're in all these, like you get to go into a lot of shops, you get to do all like all these like very interesting little projects and like kind of do like researching type stuff. Like that's where I got really into macros, was because of like I had a need, right? Like we installed a robo drill at a customer and they automated it themselves, and it was 60% faster than they were looking at the robo drill versus a Haas, and the robo drill they estimated would be 60% faster than the Haas, and the robo drill was 60% faster than their 60% faster estimate. So it's just like beating the shit out of the DT, which is like, I mean, it's going to do that all day.
Right.
This was pre DM. But they're like, dude, Haas probing, like my operators are very low level, and I like the Haas probing, like if a tool breaks, they can just like beep, boop, boop, and they probe the tool. The way that you guys have it set up, you have to go into you have to exit your program, exit your main program, open a new program, edit that program to the tool that you want, and then run that program, then get back into your main program, which it doesn't sound like a lot. If you're like us or whatever, you're like, oh, I can do that very quickly. But if you like are only used to a Haas and you're just a straight button pusher, and now you're on a FANUC control and you have to go through that process, it's not fucking easy.
Right.
It's hard. So like that was like where I really like deep dove into some of these fucking macros where it's like, oh, I can create my own G codes, right? And like I can create my own G codes, I can create my own M codes. And so like I created a couple for them because the RoboDrill has that like one little spot like on the Brother where you can pop tools in and out. Yep. So I made a little macro that just like does the math for you essentially. So it's like, I want to get that tool out of the machine. And so you just like type in like G120, T whatever, and it puts it in the spot so you can take it out. And then you like pop it back in. You like can from MDI like type G150, like T whatever, and then it'll just touch that tool off. So they didn't have to exit their program. It's not as easy as Haas probing. Nothing is as easy as Haas probing.
But it's close.
It's closer. And so like you get all these like, and so like that was awesome. I loved like, and like I didn't realize what that was gonna do to my brain, but like I'm just constantly like, I'll always like, I default to making my own G&M codes like all the time if I can, you know. So that was still at Methods, and that like really like and so after I came back from California, I was working for Bob Nakash, and I really wanted to come back and work for Bob Nakash. And like my plan at that time was to I wanted to like learn from him as much as possible and like take over BGM of the Arizona office and Methods. That's what I was like gunning for. And then he like retired like a month or two after I had come back, and they had got this other guy. His name was Russ. He's a great guy. He had a different management style than Bob, and it didn't really jive with me that much. So I like was also looking to that. I was like very quickly looking to get out of there because I was just like, this isn't for me. And I had like two options. I'd met Andrew Selway while I was at Plethora. And we became like we formed a little relationship there. And then I met James Mayette while I was revisiting Plethora and talking to him about being an apps guy for Selway and stuff. And I was very, very close to becoming a Selway applications engineer in like 2017. But instead I moved to Boston, which was truthfully probably like the best decision I've ever made for my entire career, outside of like starting my own thing, just because the people like, my stepmom always said, like, if you want to like really grow, you need to like work at the corporate headquarters, like where the action is. And that is like, at least in that instance, like so fucking true. Cause I got to work for, this dude, Jim Van Buskirk. He was the national applications manager for Methods, and Mike Bronson, who at the time was like systems integration manager. And both of those guys were like such good, like probably two of the best bosses I've ever had. Like JVB, Jim Van Buskirk, JVB. He like really just like, he just had this like really good mind for like getting things going and like project management and things like that. Like he's a bit slower, I would say, than I would like to go, but like his process and his like, he just had me like reading all these fucking books and like expanding my mind and like thinking about like the big thing that he really instilled in me was a data-driven approach to problem solving. You know, like it's like at a certain point, it's like, I don't fucking care what you feel is happening. What does the data say? You know what I mean? Like, oh, I feel like this is happening. I feel like that's happening. Like, okay, what's the data? Like, oh, you don't have data? Then shut the fuck up and get the data.
Right.
Like, if like you can't tell me shit if you don't have objective proof of what is happening here. And so like a data-driven approach to problem solving has been like, that's just like fucking in the back of my mind from these like really nasty projects we worked on. And he gave me some like really good books to read, like Critical Chain, from a project management standpoint. Uh, is this really fucking interesting book that I like subconsciously, I've read it like 3 times, and I subconsciously realized like I have my whole project management philosophy is based around that entirely right now, which is like, instead of buffering every single individual task, you have buckets of like, you put your tasks into buckets and you buffer the bucket instead of the task individually, so you don't bloat your timeline too much. Which is like, it's it it's like, oh yeah, because like if you say like, if you had like 1,000 tasks and like you added a day to each one, your project gets huge. But if like you really like, it's like, I don't need to add a day to every single one of these things. I got like 15 of these things are a week, and I'm going to need an extra week for those 15 or whatever, not 2 extra weeks. But I recommend that a lot.
And that book is, one more time?
It's Critical Chain.
Okay.
By his name's fucking weird, but
I'll find it and put it in the show notes.
Yeah. It's a like super, super good book. So he came at it, like he really gave me like good operational mindset, I would say. And like problem solving mindset and project management mindset. And then Mike Bronson, he was a technical beast, I would say. Like him and I worked on like from a like hands-on problem solving standpoint, he crushed. We did that that uh that macro that I shared with you, that was like a million, like it was just, the whole thing was macros, that we developed together. And like we have one program that could cut 13,000 different part numbers. And sometimes people like think like, that's not that crazy. It's like, no, not 13,000 parts, 13,000 part numbers. Like you could input a variety of things, and this one program is going to take data that was passed through from a robot and make that part good. And it
was super short too. Like when you told me that, I was expecting like, 4 sub programs deep, and each one of them like 40,000 lines or something, and it wasn't that long.
No, it was a pretty simple little part, is like automotive connectors or automotive crimpers for TE. And so like it's like we had to like chamfer the back, we had to cut the side, cut a profile, like throw some chamfers on some other stuff, and like call it a day. It's just like, what exactly is it going to do? Like you don't know. And like the thickness changed a lot and the length changed a lot. So it's like macro driven probing cycle to make sure that everything's correct. Like start off by like probing the part just to see if it's flat, because we had to be flat within like 5 microns before we started. Yeah, so it's like, so you like probe, and then like if it's no good, you kick that fucker out and try again. And that was a really fun one. That's the one where I thought like, I was like, oh, I did that in like fucking Jake Gates's backyard, but that was incorrect. He's like a couple hours away from there.
Still not too far.
Yeah, no. And so like, that's like, from there, then the last 2 years at Methods were just these insanely huge oil energy, like fracking tube projects, where we had a giant ass robot on a rail, Fanuc R2000 on a rail between 2 Nakamuras. One of them was taking these 3-foot long tubes and loading it through the spindle, which was fucking intense. And it worked okay. And like, it was loading it through the spindle and unloading it through the other spindle. So the end effector was just like this massive, it was huge. But like that, and that has its own challenges. And then the other one was a robot, same Nakamuras, both WT300s, loading and unloading a bar loader and a bar unloader. And I mean, each of them were different. The absolute biggest issue of those projects was chip management. And most of the time, what you'll find in almost every automated solution is chip management is what is going to fucking kill you
Right.
9 times out of 10. Because you really take for granted your ability to open that door and blow off chips until you can't fucking touch that part, and you're like, oh shit, like my process isn't that dialed for automation. It's a dialed in process, but like that robot's it's gonna grab a chip, it's gonna put a part down on a chip, and like holy shit. And in that situation, it was just the worst material I've ever worked with, period. Because it's globally sourced, like it's all over. You get it like India, Romania, France, Mexico, Argentina, like it's from everywhere, and it's cheap as fuck because they're gonna blow it up, like literally blow it up. And so like it from bar to bar, it changes drastically, and you end up having to like the ID thread, which is this like like 3 and 1/8 inch fucking Acme 6-pitch Acme thread, is just really nasty. The first one was a nightmare. We used the customer provided threading macro or whatever, which worked okay. And then the second one is like one of the like I tried something. I realized Esprit had this peck threading is what they call it, and sometimes you'll hear it called like the fancier version is like sinusoidal threading because it goes like in a sine wave. Basically, it's like in and out every single thread.
Oh, interesting.
So you like break the thread up, but when you program that in Esprit or like any cam system, like because you have to like literally do a G32 threading cycle on like every single move. So like you can't just be like, oh yeah, do this thing. You have to go like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And if you want to adjust that, it's really difficult because now you're reposting and going again. So it's like, oh, I could make my own can cycle that does this for me. And I could write these 2 programs, like, or this one program, it sets it, that gives me settings, and the second one just does the cycle. And it's just it's just like, that's another one. It's crazy short because it's just nested while do loops. So like you do like a thread, like in, out, and then the next one just does the regular thread, like full. So you break it up and then you finish it. So it made like a 2-line threading can cycle that did sinusoidal threading, and that worked pretty fucking great.
That's awesome.
And it would work on like upper turret main, upper turret lower, or upper turret sub, and then lower main, lower sub. And I was like really fucking happy with that. That was fun. But those fucking projects burned me the fuck out. They were really intense. Like lived in Texas basically for like 3 months at one point. Which was cool. I mean, like I made some friends there, like play fucking, like they introduced me to Magic the Gathering, you know?
Nice.
And so we still play online using Cockatrice or whatever, have a group chat with those jokers. It's a fucking good time. But then, yeah, after that, I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to do this. Like, I think I was like, I'm just going to fucking chill a little bit. So, found a job in California as just a manufacturing engineer position at South Bay Solutions in Fremont or Newark. And so I left. My house is still in Massachusetts, still have that house. And that's kind of like when I started. I haven't lived in my house basically for like 3 years.
Oh, wow.
I've just been on the road. So I moved away, went to South Bay Solutions, worked there for like 4 months, and then became the director of engineering for that company. And then did that for about 8 months. And that's when my buddy hit me up and he's like, hey, you want to come work for me for 3 months? And I was like, sure. Yeah, here we go. And so it was like 3 month, $45,000 contract. I'll fucking figure it out. when it's over. um, and because I was like, it was COVID times, like early
Right.
COVID, job shop stuff where like I'm making my way through the podcast, and like you guys are right in the thick of it where I'm at right now, where it's like all your customers turned off and you're like, cool, I can catch up. And then they all came back and they're like, I need everything now.
Yeah.
Which is like fucking crazy. And in our case, like we turned down the shop so much. Like there was like, it was a 150-person shop. And I think we went down to like 25, 30 people.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but then everything ramped to where it was before. And it was it was a nightmare. So that was pretty brutal. But generally that was a good job too. I learned a fuckload there
So
about
at that
making.
point, did you know you were going to be starting your own consulting company, or this was just
I
like, you know what, I've got 3 months planned out, and past that, I'll figure it out?
I had actually started the company as soon as I quit Methods and moved to California. I started the company
Oh,
in
really?
2019. Yeah. So I was just like, I think this is how I'm gonna go. I'll just get an LLC and do the thing because it's like cheap as fuck to get an LLC. So I was like Zappettini Consulting, boom, done, easy, cool last name, it works, and just kind of like just chilled on it for a while and like like casually tried to like pick up a little work here and there, but I wasn't really into it. And then so once my buddy was like, hey, you want to come, I was like, yeah. And so I just got insurance and did the things. And like what I didn't realize was that I was going to ever have employees, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I got about a year and a half into it, and I was just taking on like when I say like casual maniac, like I just was taking on so much work and like just trying to like make up for it with like a Herculean effort like every single fucking day.
Uh-huh.
It's just like you start to disappoint people. You know what I'm talking about, or it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
uh, you just drive yourself into the fucking ground.
Yeah. Well,
And
you
like,
have to learn to start saying no. Otherwise you do just like, you fail, you disappoint yourself, you disappoint others. I feel like it's the hardest thing about starting your own business is learning that you're not the answer for everybody.
yes,
You're like, I'm a great answer for some people and I get paid very well to do that. But like, I can't be everybody's shop. I can't take every job.
yeah, right. Like as much as you want to, you're like, God, I want that job. And sometimes like you're like, that job is way cooler than the one that I'm working on right now. Like
Uh-huh.
I want it so bad, but I can't fucking take it. And you're like, oh, come on.
Yep.
Um, and so yeah, so about a year and a half in, about like this February, um, my Jason, the guy in American Fork, or who I'm the COO of X2 Development Group, like I really appreciate my customers because they like kind of let me. They worked with me through my shift from being like a self-employed guy to like running a business, which was probably one of the hardest things like I've ever done,
I'm sure.
which because like yeah, I mean Jason, he's one of my like I hired him when I was at Methods actually. um he had this really bizarre resume. My like Nakash almost wanted to throw it in the trash. And I was like, no. I was like, it's because it was just really oddly written, but it's like because it's like just casually buried in there. That's like, yeah, I know a spree, and I at Lincoln Electric put in like three turret Mori lathes and programmed all those and got them going. And it's like, but it wasn't like evident that he had done that,
Right. It was just like an
Um,
aside kind of thing.
yeah, a lot of it was because like the last 6 months he took like a 6 month break and like built an app or whatever for like a machinist calculator. But no, he's like casually, he's super fucking awesome. One of the most like on a Nakamura in titanium, dude's a fucking animal. It's crazy. Um, and about February, he's like, I need more from you. I want to work with you, but like you're not giving me enough. So like I can drop you and get these guys or whatever. And I'm like, no. Let me fix this. So I hired James, longtime buddy. He lives in Phoenix, and got him going. And that was huge. I'm like super happy. I'm working with him right now in Boise. Um, and, like, that was the start of it, where it's like, I mean, I had a decision, right? Where it was like, I could really like shrink down and just be and just like, casually make like probably a couple $100,000 a year or whatever doing consulting. Just working for myself and like taking jobs, whatever. Or it's like I could just fucking grow this thing. And that's where I was like, I think I just want to grow, like, and see what we could do with it. It was very chaotic. Like I hired 2 more guys like in May. My buddy Brian, who I worked with at Methods, and Scoob. And holy shit, dude. Those first like 2-3 months were just like absolutely fucking chaos. Cause I was running a business like it was myself, like a self-employed company.
Right.
And like, everything that I was doing, it's like, if I have a disorganized file structure, it's fine because I'm working in it. So who cares?
Right.
But when it's like, oh, you're doing this, like I started this, you finish it. I started this, you finish it. Everybody was fucking pissed off. It was no good. But I appreciate like the guys that I have, because they're just like, they just tell me, like they were like, hey, I believe in what's going on here, but like you're fucking this up for everybody. And I was like, okay, cool. So I spent like that's like my big focus of what I've been doing like the last like couple months has just been like building our system. And I think we're like pretty close to being like really dialed in where we can like really share work and hand things off. And like however we propose it is like how we run the project on the backside using Asana and things like that. And we're kind of cranking now. But man alive, it was fucking brutal. I had quite a few customers that were like, you're really fucking this up. Like I want, like you do good work and I like working with you, but like you need to like really fix this. And I mean, I can't like express my gratitude towards those people. Cause like a lot of the times you'll just have people that'll be like, yeah, no, fine. And then as soon as you're done, it's just fucked. And then I have like no opportunity to fix it. Yep. The turnkey that we did for Rock Island, in Cedar City, which was like very, very successful. That's kind of like, it was a little rocky to start, because like, because I was trying to do all the work, like, and I wasn't delegating enough, but I spend so much time. Like there's days where I spent like 12 hours on the phone, like,
oh man, that's rough.
And it's just like trying to make things happen. And so it's like, do I work 20 hours today? Like, do I spend my day on the phone and then at night working? And so like what I found is like the best way to go is like, I don't really run point on projects too much anymore. I just like get everything going and set up and make sure everybody's on the same page. Then I hand it off to somebody else, nice. To one of my other guys. And then I like to bat cleanup. So if they run into trouble, cause like almost any machine that we're working on, like I can figure it out. You know what I mean? So I like just try and bat cleanup and make sure that they're well supported if they're on the road or whatever. And, figure and like just keep the clocks running smooth. It's been quite the journey, and that's great. That's where we are now.
Yeah. No, I mean, going back to what you said about like running it as a single self-employed business, like I even had that when Brad came on full time. Like he came into the shop and started working. He was like, why the hell are you doing it this way? Like, this is so stupid. Like, and it really like, it shows you like how much of your own bullshit you were willing to like put up with. Absolutely. Until somebody else starts touching it. And you're like, oh man, I was a real idiot for even like letting this go on for a day, let alone like, 6 months or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause you just like, you get wrapped up in all kinds of things and you're like, I'm like, oh, this isn't that big of a deal. When in actuality, it's like a fucking huge deal. Especially like if you ever want to step away, you like really start preventing yourself from being able to like step away. Um, and I mean, some people like can't and won't, you know, like they just
Right.
like, they won't give up the control, but it's like, no, I need to, like, for the sake of the business and the growth of the business, I have to get the fuck out of doing certain things and making sure that it's dialed the fuck in.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to be controlled by your business. Like, as cliche as that is to say, like, I know that, the E Myth and all these books say things like that, but like, it really will, your business will start controlling you if you don't have processes that can outlast you and
Yeah.
provide you that room.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because like even like a good example, like I was really striving to like in terms of like our system with Asana and everything. We like I took a little vacation or try like it was I still worked a little bit, but what I was able to do is like because I went to London for like a week to get a gang of tattoos, essentially. Like
Nice.
that's yeah. There's some cool artists out there, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna go. And like I'd planned the trip. It ended up being really cool because like by the time from when I planned it to when I went, like my cousin married this like fantastic woman from who lives in London, and then he moved out there. So like I was able to stay with them, which was like so fucking cool.
Oh,
And
wow.
like met a lot of really cool people at their wedding. They let and I stayed with them a little bit, like Jesse and Lucy. They're so fucking rad. And it was yeah, so like that was cool. But like while I was there, like I was able to for the most part like enjoy the vacation. Like I did a little bit of programming, like just like some 5-axis programming for one of our customers because he had like a little bit of a drop dead date. Um, but I was like, that's all I had to do while I was there. It's just like some casual programming. I think I worked on it for like 10 hours total over the week. Um, and we were good to go. So it's like, oh, cool. It's starting to work a little bit. Um, yeah,
That's
that was
killer.
nice. Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
other softwares or processes have you found really work? You mentioned Asana, but are there any other things that you've brought on board that really help you manage your team and manage your projects?
Slack is huge.
Okay.
Slack, Asana, and Google Drive is pretty much like exactly. Oh, and like big shout out to Synology. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they make
They make
like
the drives, right?
yeah, the
Yeah.
NAS boxes. So like we
Hmm.
run the whole business off of Synology Drive. So we all are like the thing I like about it over a traditional server is that the files are local to your computer. And then they push and pull as you like get internet access. So if you're without internet, like you have everything that you had when you turned your computer off, which is massive when you're traveling because like every one of us is on the road, you know, like the team
Right.
is completely remote. So like you never know like where you're going to be, how good the internet's going to be, whatever. So like relying on like VPNs and things like that is like very scary. So Synology is cool. That keeps us all connected. Slack is like sick communication, right? I don't know if you use that or not, but
I'm in a couple
um,
Slacks, yeah, and the
yeah, it's
searchability is really nice.
yeah, it's sick. I mean, Asana's been like the MVP, I would say, of the whole thing. And initially it was like really bunk. It was hard. Not hard. It's like when it's just me, it was garbage. I just didn't really use it at all because I just knew exactly what I needed to do. Why am I going to tell myself that I need to do this thing?
Right.
And then when I got guys, we started to use it more, and our templates were kind of garbage, like how we did the projects and everything. But um, and like the Asana's like you can do some really cool shit with it. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
like automation in there. So like what like the latest push that we've done that's helped a lot is they have a really cool page called their overview tab, which allows like you can put key resources in there. You can link directly to Google Drive. So like all of our like scope documents, the bombs for the project, tool list, whatever. Like you can just link that in there, and so like that becomes kind of your homepage, and like that also has like a status page. So like you can say, oh, I'm on track. This is on hold or off track, and then like populate like meeting notes or whatever that's going on. And so like it's really fantastic tool to create like extreme visibility and transparency, like, which I'm like a huge fan of. Is like, I don't want, like, I want everybody to be able to like go into any project and see like exactly what's happening, and be able to like pick up the ball and run with it with like very little directive. They could just go to this thing and like make it happen. And we're slowly getting to that point, which is cool. And like, and not in terms of like a software tool, but like I just do every week. I mean, we're a small team, so I do one-on-ones with the guys every week, because like we hardly ever work together. So like one day a week, we sit down, we have like an hour-long conversation or whatever. How are you doing? What's blocking you? Like, how are you feeling? You know, like, are you bogged down? Do we need to do more? Like, do I need to like get you off of what you're doing to like really get you like to like, so you're not like inundated with it? Because it gets really, sometimes if you're on one project, I mean, you probably understand this, when you're like on one thing and you're just on it and on it and on it. You just need something to like take, yeah. And you're like, fuck. And like you end up creating these like, or you end up being able to like solve problems while working on something else, you know?
Yeah. I think that if you're passionate about this industry, or passionate about your job in this industry, it becomes very easy to become obsessed with a project if you're stuck on it for too long. And like, you're like thinking about it in the shower, you're thinking about it as you close your eyes to go to bed, and it really does just burn you up.
Yeah. Yeah. This like that it's that feeling when you're done and like, you're just like, every, like, you're just immediately exhausted. You're like, okay, I gotta finish this bad boy up. Yeah.
So what has been your like crowning jewel or your favorite project you've worked on to date, and like what's the coolest part of it for you?
Oh man. Like there's a couple that we're working on that we haven't gotten through that I would say will be the crowning jewel, but like right now I did this 5-axis aerospace part for a company up in Oregon and just outside of Portland, called Usher Precision. It it was this like really really tight part, tight deadline. Like had to get it up there, get it run off in about 2 weeks.
Oh wow.
And that's like from like nothing. I'm so proud of it. I got it like tattooed on my arm. Like it's right
That's
there.
That's awesome.
And so that was a Matsura part, MAM 7235V. I got that one through Selway because they like approached Selway about programming it and they just don't have the bandwidth. And so they asked me if I could do it. And I was like, yeah, hell yeah. So I went up there, like we quoted it, got it. It was good. They had a really, like they used Mastercam. They had a really fucking good tool library, which, as you know, is like, it's crazy important. And it made my job like a lot easier because I didn't have to like build everything from scratch. They had almost everything I needed like inside the machine already.
Oh, that's
and like
killer.
It was honestly insane. I've never worked with anybody or at a company that's tool library was that fucking dialed in.
Wow.
Like everything in the Mastercam was exactly how it was in real life. And so between that, like, so went up there, first strategy, total trash, removed way too much material too fast, reprogrammed it real quick, over the weekend and like just busted it out in like a day. It was a snap off part. I have it's on IG of like, it's just like this big part, like kind of like flopping in the wind, you know?
Yeah,
it was
I
like
saw that thing. That
7
thing was
inches.
killer.
Yeah, 7 inches tall, like 5 inches wide. And some of those bores were like plus 5/10 minus nothing. And we were hitting that and we hit it first shot, you know, like
Nice.
And initially we were just going to like get it set up and move, but then and then move on. But like stayed a couple days, worked with their operator, The guy that ran the machine was like a little delayed from getting back from vacation, so stayed a couple days, worked with him to like really show him the process. And then we did like the 5-part runoff for their customer, and like went through the whole QC, and like we nailed it. It was it was like one of the most seamless projects I've ever worked on. I'm so happy with that because it was fucking hard part. Like the weirdest part about it, and like why it kind of had to be a 5-axis, was that that like weird like shape, how it went up in the middle. Like there was a flat bottom groove for an O-ring on that whole profile on the
Oh
top. So
no.
you like have to like do this fucking 5-axis cut for an O-ring groove, and it was hilarious. Um, and yeah, like just that was a fun one. I would say that's the as of right now, that's the one that I look at the most. That's like I fucking love that. Well, that was before. Actually, no. The man, I was thinking of individual, but like really, 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 the fucking Rock Island job is the one that did it for us. That's like that truly is our crowning jewel, because like we came in, it was a little rocky, but then I put James on it. This was James. It was his first project on a Matsura ever. Um, and I had designed all the work holding and picked out all the tooling and stuff. And dude, we stuffed that machine like as it's as big as it can possibly be, like in terms of tombstone size, like maximum diameter, maximum height, maximum tool length. Which the maximum tool length on that machine, and if you're using the maximum pallet, like they will interfere with each other.
Oof.
But the parts are all kicked at an angle, and we were able to get 4 parts on that pallet. Um, and when you kick it, for when you're going to do that boring operation, it clears by like half an inch or something, and it's okay. And so we did that one start to finish in about 2 months, from design to runoff. Got the Matsura going, got a Haas going, designed and built all the fixturing for that. James did a fantastic job, and we increased their throughput by like 50%. So they were the first month that it was in, that everything was going. Their production goal was 1,000 guns, and we did like 1,500.
Nice.
And they have a really good system running now, where like they come in for an hour on Saturday and Sunday, and just load it up, like unload and reload, and just like run and run and run, and it just never stops. Like I reached out to Lynn Gomez, the plant manager, on a Saturday. I was like, "Hey, how's it running? How's everything going?" And she sends me back a picture of just like 100 mason jars. And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "It's great. I spent the last 7 hours picking fruits and vegetables for my garden and canning while the machine's running. So can't get any better than that."
That's killer.
Yeah. So that, and I think that like it was a really good Matsura turnkey. I think it was Selway's like most successful turnkey ever. And we did it like very quickly. She's happy. That'll probably make babies. I think we'll get some more out of that, or Selway will. I don't know if I will, but Selway will.
That's killer. So on the 5-axis part, you mentioned that your first attempt at it, you failed. How do you
Correct.
handle customer expectations when something like that happens? Because, I imagine, much like when you were an AE, they expect you to be the expert and come in and just like do perfect work right off the bat, versus like having to actually develop a process. So how are you managing customer expectations and visibility when you are actually developing a process?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Really, it's sometimes it's like hard to navigate, but and it really like it depends. Like the shitty answer is like it depends person to person, right? Because you can't treat every customer equally, because like everyone has different personalities, so you have to talk to them differently. But for the most part, it's just confidence. Okay, like being able to explain why it failed, like and how you're going to fix it is really the biggest thing, and like what the timeline looks like to fix that. Like, like in that case, like I roughed too much material because I was like, I'm gonna need to remove more material when I finish these bores, the part doesn't move that much. But when I took the back half of it off, it just made it a floppy mess, and I couldn't finish anything. So it's like, okay, so I just need to like, so when they saw it, they're like, what the fuck? And they were like a little concerned. And it's like, yeah, so, but like, as soon as you see it, you kind of get like really good at like formulating a plan, like very quickly, which is like, all right, so I took this material away, like bad move. I need to break up the roughing into like a couple different steps now. And this happened on like a Friday. So it's like, I need to break the roughing into a couple different steps. That'll make it more rigid this way. I'll finish this, I'll do that, and then come back in and rough it at the end and then finish it this way. Then we'll snap it off and call it a day. And I'll do that. It's Friday. I'll have that done. We'll be cutting on Monday. And so that like being able to like, if somebody's like, what the fuck happened? And you're like, I don't fucking know. It's like, I don't know how to fix it or whatever, then you're kind of fucked. But it's like, it's just like, I have a plan. Don't worry. We're going to get this. Like, if I can use a weekend, I'll use a weekend. Sometimes it's like, you end up like, I'll have it fixed by tomorrow, and like, just come up with a plan. And
so you bring them solutions, not problems, really.
Correct. Yeah. Like, cause you're hiring me for solutions. Like, right. So if I'm like, oh, we're fucked. Like there's no, we're fucked. I can't do that. Like we will figure it out. Come hell or high water. Like I actually have a really good example of this, with a Enshu project I was working on, for like Selway brought us in on this one too. And I designed this, it was, I think I sent you pictures of it. The Christensen arm trigger guards for their like bolt actions. There's like nothing left to that part when it's done. You really only like there's probably multiple ways you can fixture the thing, but like the way that I processed it, and like given our constraints on having to balance cycle time and hit like we needed to hit under 15 minutes overall cycle time, and we needed to balance that between the two operations. So like you have to like kind of balance like what material you're cutting, what you're not cutting, and how you're going to hold it. And so I was like, oh, I think I have this really slick idea where I'm going to use these Mighty Bite expansion pins to grab on these two holes. And I'm like, and if that doesn't work, I could put like some pit bull clamps, like some blunt nose pit bull clamps on the outside of those points, and that should do it. And so the clamps by themselves didn't fucking work. It just ripped it right out of there. That sucked. So we made another one, put the pit bull clamps on, held great. It was awesome. But we're starting to see like, and they ran a fuckload of these things before they realized like, and they weren't measuring them. Well enough anyway. This is like a low level operator type of place. They're in the middle of fucking nowhere. So what we found is like, oh shit, when you clamp the expansion pins, those do hold pretty okay. And but they don't really provide the rigidity that you would want when you do the pit bull clamps. Mm-hmm. So they push the part around, and you get an angle. Oh. And it's like, okay, well, I need to fix this now. I can't the right way to do this. The right way is to remake the fixtures and put pins in there instead of the expansion clamps, but they need parts going immediately. So it's like, okay, I can probe myself out of this situation. And the hole wasn't big enough to probe the holes themselves. However, we're on a horizontal. So I just wrote this really fucked up probing cycle that, I mean, it works, but it's a pain. So the parts sit stacked horizontally. There's 6 on a face, and they're skewed on the horizontal, which would be in the x-axis. So I'd rotate the part, probe the one side, because the hole is concentric to the is equidistant to the outside. So probe that, flip it 180, probe that, find, like, I know the distance between the two holes, and I know how far off they are and why now. So I add G68 to all the tool paths. So I find that line, do the math, find the angle, and then now, boom, I'm done. Like, so that is like, it's not an ideal solution, right? Like, the ideal solution is rebuild all the fucking fixtures. But if you need parts now, like, that gets you by, and it fucking worked. Um, and it took like 2 hours to do, as opposed to like a couple days to like rebuild everything and like like get pins in and do whatever. And you can like, so there's sometimes you have to get a little bit creative, but there's always a solution. Just like what can happen is where you end up going.
Okay. And then, so both on this job and the Fifth Axis job, you mentioned, scrapping parts, developing processes. So how do you build that into your contracts? Like, how much scrap are you typically shooting for? How much will a customer allow you? I imagine it changes, based on the part, and if it's a casting or a forging or a blank, but like, how much do you typically see, and how do you build that into your contracts?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, because it depends on like obviously, like you said, the material itself, and what they're willing to go through to develop the process, and like that really depends on like how long term the process is, so if it's like a really short, like in the case of the other one, like we had, like, I had to make 5 parts, and we had like 7 blanks or whatever. So I didn't have, like, on the big 5-axis one. So we had to hit it pretty quickly. So one of them is like, in that instance, like, there's not really much room for error. And then we end up just going, like, there's just a different level of comfort in there. And sometimes it's dictated by the customer, how much material we're going to use. Sometimes they don't fucking care, and they will throw material at it until it's perfect, especially if it's just like 60-61 or 70-75. They're just like, yeah, do what you got to do until it's like dialed the fuck in, and we get going. But typically, like, I try and go for like like a 3-ish% scrap rate, whatever that looks like for them.
Okay.
And then we work from there. But it's a bit different than when you're like making parts and somebody's like at a shop, and they're like, well, we need 5 parts, so here's 5 pieces of material, don't fuck this up, kind of thing. We typically end up with like a lot more pieces of material for development, because we're developing something that's going to run for like, it most likely is going to be the only thing that machine will do in certain cases. So we have a little more leeway in terms of scrap.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, there's nothing worse than like customer supplied material, and they're like, "Yep, you've got exactly what you need. Good luck. Have fun."
Yeah, which I was kind of like, it was interesting doing that with the horizontal project, because like, it is customer supplied material. It's a water jet blank, but they're like, yeah, just do your thing. And some of it was like, really, during the development, it was just like really picky stuff, like stuff that's like not on the drawing or whatever, or stuff that is on the drawing that they don't care about, but then they actually do care about,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this spot is on the drawing, says the spot is optional, so I don't put it on there because it's on the back side of the tombstone, and I don't like being on the back side of the tombstone when the spindle disappears. Not for my sake, but for an operator's sake who's not familiar with this, and like not a machinist. It's like, I don't want to go back there because it's scary.
Yeah.
And so we deliver, and they're like, yeah, where's the spot? And it's like, what do you mean? Like, it needs to be on there. It's like, but it's optional in the print, so we didn't put it on there. Like, oh, you have to have it. And then so they make it not optional, do some weird stuff, and like, they don't like, it's like, it's got to be like a 10 thou deal, and they're like, okay, we put it in there, and they're like, no, it's not deep enough. So you like continue to make it to print. You continue to make it to print, and they're like, I don't like that. And you're like, okay. So like, don't worry about this. And you're like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, just make it how I like it. And then you're like, oh, cool. Yeah, I can do that.
So in that vein, then, are you giving customers estimates versus quotes so that it can vary depending on, as the scope of work changes? Because again, I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice, but I have heard that there is a legal difference between an estimate and a quote, where a quote is a finalized number and an estimate is a
I
best guess that can vary.
I give them proposals, right?
Okay.
So I like our typical proposal will have like at the top, our proposal is also our scope of work. And so like I have a really short and sweet at the top, like this is what the scope of this project is. For instance, like just did one the other day. It's like we're gonna turnkey 15 parts for you. Provide you the documentation for those 15 parts, build the fixturing for those 15 parts, and then train you guys on how to do that. And we're going to try and hit this cycle time in that for these groups of parts. And then we lay out the responsibilities, what the customer is responsible for and what we're responsible for. So like they're responsible for, and this also depends, like your guys are going to buy the tools or we're going to buy the tools. But like if we buy the tools, then you got to give us all that money up front before we buy anything. But it's like you guys are going to provide us good documentation so we can make these parts to print and good models. And you guys are responsible for quality. We're not responsible for quality because we're just fucking Joe Schmo from out of town. So like we just have calipers and mics and like some gauge blocks or whatever that we travel around with. And then what we're responsible for, like if we're procuring material, procuring fixtures, things like that, creating all the programs, and then we do it in and then I do phases of the project. Phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 is our typical structure. And like we have a process readiness review that we build in there. If the customer wants to do it, like after the end of each phase, we can sit down and discuss what we like, if we need to adjust or and how we're doing. So phase 0, design phase, that gets us going. That's like where we do our process design. So if it's an automation cell, then we're like specing, like we've probably already spec'd the robot, but like we're doing a cell layout, we're building end of arm tooling, we'll do the fixture design, we'll do all the programming, we'll find out like what, like everything happens. That's like typically our biggest phase is like our process design because we have to be like pretty dialed in there. Then phase 1, we build it. Phase 2, we do a run it rate, which is like kind of like we after the cell's all built, we'll like put it through its paces. And so this is like pre-optimization, like essentially like we've gotten it to about 80%. Start putting it through its paces, see if we need to like break glass and like fucking start shooting our design and like really adjust things on the fly. I'm a big 80-20 guy. So like I don't really like to over plan because which sounds nuts, but the amount of projects that I've worked on and been a part of where you plan forever and then like you get into it and you realize you're fucked. You just wasted a lot of time. So I don't I like as bad as it sounds, I like really like I like prescribe to like fail fast, fail often. Like just get into it, build it, start going, see where we're at, like, and gives you time to adjust very quickly. And then once you know that you're stable enough, now you can optimize. And then our last phase is typically just runoff, where you're just like sitting back and watching it run. And each one of those phases has an estimated amount of time that it's going to take us. We exclude quality from all of those steps because that's not on us. And I'm not gonna let somebody hold our timeline hostage to their internal processes. Cause that's not fair. And that would suck. And then we have terms and conditions below, which is like, this is our payment schedule. The estimate is like we're within about 10% of what we think we're going to be. If it's hourly, it's going to cost this much. We don't take any, like we have like all the IP is yours for this. We have no liability for the product once it's done. Not our product, but like the product that we're making, things like that. So that, yeah, we don't really do quotes. We do proposals. Just it's more protection for us because it's a much bigger, typically at larger scales. Like to hundreds of thousands of dollars in some of these projects. That's like, it gets pretty scary pretty fast.
I bet. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Well, let's get into some of these questions.
Cool.
Jay Fettig Machines asked, "What are the prerequisites for, what prerequisites are required on a machine, whether it's Haas, Fanuc, Heidenhain, etc., to integrate a robot system?"
So I'm not 100% sure about Heidenhain, but I know it's probably about the same as the other two, where you need some kind of, like, Fanuc is really easy in most cases because they're designed to be automated, and especially if you're going Fanuc, they have, like, you buy like an IO link card and you can like talk to whatever through like fucking Ethernet IP, and it's easy to go.
Right.
Haas,
Well, I even
really?
saw that like on at IMTS, there were a bunch of machines had the new Plus controller, and now you can program the robot directly from the controller, even without a pendant, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's fucking cool. Haas, you just need like the extended M codes to be able to give it signals for the most part. And you're just like firing signals, like the Trinity system. Uh, it's a pretty, like, the interface to the machine is like pretty simple. It turns on, like, they turn on like some Haas options, which is like some of the clamping things. Like, it doesn't let you run if fixtures aren't clamped. That's a Haas thing. And then really it's just like the machine calls for the robot, and then the machine tells like the robot it's good, and then it goes, you know. It's a pretty simple deal. Heidenhain, we have yet to do any integration on a Heidenhain, so I really can't say, but I imagine it's probably about the same. You just need some way to like for the machine to fire a signal to the robot to be like, come do this thing, and then the robot does its thing, and it's like, all right, cool, go away now. And that's pretty much it. It's a lot. It's like not as scary as you would think it would be. Um, you know, it's pretty simple.
When you need input too for the machine to know that the robot's done its duty, right? Or I guess you don't need it, but it's nice to have.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can do it like with the hot, like, you can just do that with M codes, you know, like you just fire M codes off. And like you give it like the finished signals coming from the robot that it did its thing.
Okay.
And so it's like it's just hanging on an M code until the robot says I did it, and then it's like, okay, cool, we can go.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Melissa, M95 Machining asked, "How do you become the cool guy at such a young age, and what drives you to grow your company?"
Yeah, she sent me this yesterday. Like, we've been chatting a lot about like her business and like the branding and everything, and like growing her machining, and like I've been working, like I got into with, I'm just gonna like a little backstory here, because like I got into that through Trinity, because Trinity is like working a deal with her to like they basically gave her a try to buy unit, and like they contracted me to like help her get that system going. So we've been chatting like a fuckload about like how, like, what the type of work she's doing and how she's doing it, and like helping her with like fusion stuff and whatever. I like this is like a weird question to answer, because like I don't know what she means by like such a cool guy, but I like, mostly I think it's just like we just have like really candid conversations, and like the thing that I could say, like, for I guess my knowledge that I have right now or whatever, and my personality is like, I just like I'm not afraid too much of failure. Like I said, fail fast, fail often. So like I'd take a lot of risks. I mean, I started my business with like nothing, you know, like a 3-month contract, and like just like went from there, and like just like a belief in myself that I could get, that's like, if the work dries up, I could fucking get the work, you know what I mean? I could always get a job because I'm like good at what I do, good enough anyway. um and like really part of that, like personality was just being a technical sales guy, essentially, as part of being an applications engineer. um just talking to a fuckload of people and seeing a lot of shops. And then driving to grow my company. Don't really know how to answer that. Like it's just like inherent, I guess. Like I just want more and more and more. And the more that I bring on, like I've brought on guys, everyone that works for me is like a buddy of mine. And so like I want to make my life better. I want to make their life better. And just keep going and like keep growing and making it the best company it could be. Like I I like, and I'm sure like you probably do this as well. It's like you've worked for companies before and you know what you do and you don't like about those companies, and you just try really fucking hard to not do the things that you don't like because you want to create an environment that you want to work in, right? Like,
Right.
And so like trying really really hard to make the company sustainable and a good place to work is kind of what drives me to grow it.
That's great. And I think it really shows. I mean, even just you talking about having like hour-long one-to-ones, like that's something I think is missing in a lot of companies. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need a pat on the back, but if I'm working for somebody, I kind of like to know where I stand and like
Yeah.
let them know where I'm at. That I think that's very vital to like happiness in your job. Like everybody wants that mastery, and you might think that you're hot shit, and then all of a sudden your boss is like, "Hey, dude, what's going on with
Yeah.
this? Like, why is this not being attended to or something?" Or vice versa,
Yeah. Yeah. Cause like if they're fucking up, I'll tell them they're fucking up. And I expect them to tell me if I'm fucking up, you know?
Right.
And they do. And I like it. Cause like if like it's team effort to like grow this thing. I mean, like we're like a bootstrapped startup essentially for manufacturing consulting, and it's going.
That's great. So Z Messner had a lot of questions about that RPS system that you showed, and I maybe had done you a disservice by using that as the picture to request questions with,
Yeah,
because
no,
as you told me, that's Troy's system that you're
yeah,
supporting on the back end.
but it's okay. I can answer pretty much all of these questions. They're like pretty straightforward. The only one like I can like the are you using the factory UR Polyscope software? I can only answer that as yes or no, and the answer is yes. I asked Troy, and they are using that. I don't. I have yet to, and I'm like really trying to do more UR stuff because it is the future. I have like a UR5, not E, like on the back burner that a buddy of mine has. He's trying to sell. I'm just looking for the right fucking project to buy that thing, so I can get more into the UR. Because like it would be a disservice to ourselves to not to just try and do yellow robots.
Right.
We're really familiar with them, but like it's very limiting.
How is the robot machine programmed to know what pallet is in the machine, where to put it back, where to go next, what program to run
Yeah.
it, etc.?
So it's a very, very simple system. And like Troy and I talk about this, and we're working on some things to make it a little more robust. But like you essentially like when you run the system, you tell it, okay, I want to run 1 through 30, right? You just tell it run one position through 30. Like it will pick up the part from one and it's going to put it back in one always. So what is determining the program that will run in the machine is a binary tag. So he puts binaries. So like the robot has a little binary reader and the pallet has a little tag on it. So when it comes and it grabs it, it reads the binary, and that tells it what program is going to be run on that pallet. And it works pretty well. The limiting factor is you only have like 30 parts or something you can put on there. Like you have 1 through 30, you can have 30 different parts on there. If you start adding more than that, now you're like stomping on programs in your control and stuff like that. But from what I understand, I think he's going to switch to RFID, so it becomes a little more you can get more granular, because like you can say exactly what program is it's assigned to that tag, as opposed to like you have 2000 through 2030 and that's fucking it. If your program isn't that number, that's too fucking bad. Robot's not putting it in there. And so like so like it grabs one, it reads the program, puts it in, it's going to put it back in rack one, then grab two, and just go down the line that way. It works great. The biggest downside to that is like if you reload those parts, you have to restart the system from the top, which is a little annoying, but it works. And I know like he is actively working on fixing that, so that it's not as so that like there's a better interface for it and things like that. I text Troy like all the time recently. And like especially about this system because a lot of people, I've been posting about it a lot, people have been fucking reaching out to me like, what's the deal with this, blah blah blah.
Is each pallet location taught to the robot by hand? If so, how do you ensure the gripper is perfectly level and square at each location?
Yeah, so they we didn't do the implementation, they did the implementation. I think I was telling you like we have had some like fairly high level discussions with Troy about doing some of these pallet system implementations like in other parts of the country because like we are all over the place. Um, like like I'm technically in Massachusetts. My automation guys in Massachusetts. From Portland or in Arizona. We can cover a lot more ground. But yeah, no, they come in, they get everything going. They teach every single spot to make sure that it's going in and out correctly. They take one pallet and move it around to everywhere. They can no bullshit install this machine in like 3 days. It does a great job. I think like your former co-host, what's his name? Peyton, Brick Tactical guy. Yeah, I think he has one on his VF2. And it's pretty sweet. I like it a lot. Like, and just like rolling into the maximum weight deal is like it uses a UR16E. And with the cleat can hold quite a bit of weight, but we're limited by the robot on what our weight is. So we can only do pallets that are like up to 23 pounds, which is like really cool in a, like, it's a fucking fantastic light duty system. Like, we're trying to do some like, pallets right now, or like some little tombstones, 5-axis tombstones. And like, we end up fucking shredding those things, to like make it work. I'm actually like, one of the things that I'm kind of fucking around with right now in Fusion is doing, like generative design tombstones to make them super lightweight. It's not working out super great, but like I have a call with them today because like if I can get that to work, I think that would be the fucking way to go. And it'd be just really trick. It'd take fucking forever to make your pallets, but like, and your tombstones, but it would be very interesting to make that happen.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things like this, and like it's like a side tangent to that is like every problem is solved. Like you're always trying to like solve a problem, like, and like innovation is born from that. And it's like I was like generative design, who fucking cares? And then I'm like, I just need to get this whole thing under 23 pounds. Like, oh, it's like, what if I just like make these like little, like I build my pallet, but just like in little sections and like just try and connect those together and whatever. So it's like, I never would have done that if it wasn't for this system. You know what I mean? Which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's really neat. One question I had for you, and you brought it up earlier. So you have all this documentation that you're delivering to customers. Are you seeing a push to paperless documentation on a lot of these customers? So digital assets versus hard copies?
I never give anybody a hard copy of anything.
Okay.
Yeah. So like nobody's asked me for physical copies of anything because like paper sucks, dude. Like it can get destroyed. It's super hard to like to like deal with and like manage when it's like I could just throw this on a USB and hand it to you.
Right.
Or like,
what about on their end though? Are you seeing them use more computers at machines versus
absolutely,
like paper travelers and things?
Big time. There's still like almost every company that I've been in that uses like ERP systems and stuff. They're just like everyone's starting to add computers at their machines because it's just like it's just fucking annoying to like, oh, let me fucking rip open this thing and like, oh, this is old and like, oh, there's multiple copies all over the place. I'd say like GCM is probably one of the most dialed in places I've been to. They use Epicor ERP system, which is fine. Like it's pretty good. It's an unwieldy monster in the beginning, but like once you dial it in, like they have pretty good process, and they have a 2 monitor setup at every machine that they have. One for the software, one for like Epicor, and then one for prints. So they're like they always have it. Every machine has access to the prints and like the files and everything. There's like hardly any, like they will have paper travelers also, but like they're pushing really hard towards paperless. And the cool
Nice.
thing, one of the coolest things about that was like we went into their Chicago facility while we were out there for IMTS, and it was the exact same fucking thing. So they like really, they like company wide, like really pushed to have like a similar setup everywhere so they could talk to each other better. It was really impressive to see.
That's awesome. That is,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that is like one of the big benefits of going paperless is that it's easy to scale. You're like, oh, I added a machine, cool, 2 monitors and a computer, and I'm up and running.
Yeah. And like now you could fucking like you can do that with like a thin client, you know? Like it doesn't need to be anything really robust.
Yeah. Now we tried to do it in our inspection room with a Google. What are those things called?
Like a
The
Chrome thing.
Chrome stick.
Yeah.
The only
Oh
problem with
God.
those I found out is that they have end of lives. Like they have end of
Really?
support. All of the Chrome stuff does. And so like the one that I had bought, it was like an Asus Chrome stick. I plug it in, I start using it, and then like 2 days later, I get a notification that like, hey, you have 6 months left before there's end of support on this Chrome stick. I'm like, well, fuck that. Like, nope,
That's yeah,
returning
that's
that.
fucking and that was at your day job, previous
No, that
day
was at
job?
my shop. I was trying to do
Oh.
it in my inspection
Oh
room.
shit.
And
Yeah.
then yeah, I looked into it more, and the way that they get away with like constantly updating Chrome OS is that they just phase out hardware. Like every single Chromebook, every single Chrome stick, everything has an end of life where they're just like, by this point, there will be so many updates that your hardware won't support it anymore, and we're just phasing you out.
Dude, those rat bastards. That's
I was like,
crazy.
well, okay, can't do that. Guess I'm going back to a mini PC or something.
Yeah, for real. What does your inspection room look like now? Because
It's pretty
you're in like a
packed.
tiny little shop, right? Like it's pretty
Yeah,
small. It's like a
yeah,
thousand square feet.
1,000 square feet, including the office. So my
Fuck.
inspection room is our shipping room and our inspection room. I've got our
Classic.
OC in there, our CMM, a big table that we built with a snap-on box underneath that has all our gauges in it, and
Okay.
then like a little surface plate in there, our master height, thread gauges, all that stuff. It is very packed, and like we just got a fiber laser yesterday or 2 days ago, and we just like
Telesis?
hmm?
Would you get a Telesis?
No, it's a Omtech, I think.
Okay.
One of those Chinese, ones that everybody
Yeah.
has. But we just like shoehorned it into the inspection room for right now because we haven't cleared a space for it in the rest of the shop.
Holy shit. Wow. And you got like 3 machines in there too?
Yep, 3 brothers. We've got a manual lathe, compressor, all that stuff. Big surface plate out in the middle of the room too.
Like, so can more than one of you be in there at a time, or does it just become like you guys are on top of each other?
It depends on where you are in the shop.
Yeah.
Usually it's not too bad. Like our desk is like a big long husky desk with both programming stations, and that one like there's a lot of room around it. The new S700 we just got, there's a ton of room between it and the surface plate. But then the X1 S700 and the F600 are like facing each other, and so if we're both
Okay.
running those machines, we're kind of
Yeah.
stepping around each other and doing the dance.
Yeah. Yeah. Ass to ass over there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
So
Big shop is next for sure.
Yeah. Because you'd mentioned like you were looking at getting into a new space. Is that like happening, you think, sooner rather than later, or you're like holding off?
My guess is we'll probably start moving into new space early next year, depending on what we can find. But
Yeah.
like, we're just both tired of like, having everything so tight, and it just sucks. Like,
Yeah.
and we're looking towards like, buying an auto CMM, and I'd like kind of a nicer office space for that. Like our office, it's just like one of those drop ceiling, like in a warehouse offices. And
Yeah.
whoever used the place before us, I think were carpenters. And so like, despite our best efforts of like cleaning everything and vacuuming the roof and stuff, like it's still dustier than I'd really like.
Yeah, that's gross.
Yeah.
And you guys have been in there for like a while.
Yeah, this not next month. November will be 7 years.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really low
dusty.
cost, so it that's what's been, I think, pushing us to stay for so long.
Yeah, I believe it. Like a fucking 1,000 square foot industrial space in Tucson has to be pretty cheap.
Yeah, it's not that bad, and really, like, the places we're looking at aren't terribly priced either. Like the cost per square foot really isn't that much more. It's just, I'm not going to go from 1,000 square feet to 1,500 square feet. We're going to try and get like 3,000 square feet or something.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's like on that. It's interesting. Like as housing prices and everything have increased in Arizona, it seems like industrial space hasn't really caught up yet, which is pretty fortunate. Because I occasionally like look, like think about it, like think about moving back or whatever to Phoenix, and like, or like what would it be? And it's like, dude, the fucking space that I used to rent in Gilbert is like about the same price as it was when I rented it like a decade ago. And it's like, how is this possible when the same houses are like 3-4 times the price? It's crazy.
I think our rent has gone up maybe $80 in 7 years.
That's
something like that.
That's incredible. Yeah. So it's
it's crazy.
It's a good compromise to when you can be like, it's like this space sucks. It's like, also it's really fucking cheap. And like, we're here already. We don't have to deal with a move because a move fucking blows.
Oh, it's going to be so expensive. Like not only is it like riggers, but then it's electrical and possibly adding an AC unit to the shop space. Like the place we're looking at has AC in the offices, and then I think swamp cooling in the shop spaces, and that's just not we ain't doing that. So adding AC, running conduit, all that stuff is like great. Okay, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, and so you're probably like looking at an overlap, right, of like a month where you're paying for now both places, and like then there's a couple days where you're like, okay, like, hey guys, by the way, we're going to be down for like hopefully only 3 days, but we'll see how it goes.
No, we're going to try to do like when we got the F600, I knew the shop space was already going to be so tight that I did a full CAD model of our shop. I was telling you over text. I did it in Fusion, and then you can actually export that to, I don't remember what the file type is, but it's whatever iPhone takes for AR.
Okay.
And so I was able to actually just like walk through the shop with everything physically represented using my wife's iPhone. And I was like, okay, cool. Like there's enough space between the F600 and the S. Like it doesn't feel uncomfortable. Cool. Like, okay, I can get around the machines. Cool. All that stuff. So we'll probably do that. And that way we can just like run conduit, run all the air, everything like set up before we move up a machine.
Mm-hmm. Get all that chunk in there. So you think like when you get in the new machine, like get in the new building, you'll get some new equipment, or
probably wait a little bit because I know that the price is going to hurt just moving alone.
Big time.
But as I've said on here before about ad nauseum, 5-axis is definitely where we're headed next. I'm not really sure. IMCS kind of left me with more questions than answers in that aspect.
Sure.
Like seeing some of the machines in person and asking some questions. I'm not really sure where we're going next. And also Brother's new 5-axis, I thought was going to, I guess I was kind of hopeful that they would price it too high so that it would not even be on my radar.
Yeah.
But it was priced so attractively that it's like, well, man, like, $170,000 to jump into a real 5-axis with a little bit of turning capabilities. That's not terrible. Like it doesn't accomplish my automation goals, but it does add a lot of capability for a low cost.
So I guess like, what do you think about that UMC 350? Is that a no go?
We're not a hot shop. I'll just say that.
Like, oh yeah, dude, it's like $100,000, like pretty fucking good. Like
the non HD version of it, I want to say had like 0 payload capabilities though.
Yeah.
Like I thought somebody had told me it was like 10 pounds or something.
Sure.
Which is just,
that's absurd. That's like that's like less than a Vice.
Right. Yeah. You're like throwing a KSC MIDI on there with like, a tiny piece of stock. But no, I think if we were going to go cheaper 5-axis, it's probably the M200, or we would get Brother's what is it, U500 that's not full 5-axis, but it is 3+2 because that's got a bigger work envelope. I don't know. I'm at this point, I'm very unsure where we're going to go next as far as machines. The big things I settled at IMTS were like, it definitely looks like we're going to be looking towards Zeiss instead of Hexagon for the CMM.
Yeah, it's a good call.
Yeah, well, I've spent a lot of time programming PC-DEMUS, and I'm not a fan at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I did it for 5 years, and I just walked away with like, man, I really hate that software. And so like I just grilled the Zeiss apps lady for like, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes while I was there. Like, oh, how do you do this? What about this? How do you handle this? And she had like answers for everything. And then when I talked to the sales people, they were like, oh yeah, you can, like, we'll program a part with you live. And then if you want, you can take the training classes and we'll like roll that cost back into the cost of a machine if you want to buy a machine after that. I was like, cool. Nice. All right. So we'll see.
That is awesome. That's really cool. Sick, dude. Nice.
Yeah. So speaking of new things, though, that brings us on to shop news and new things. What's new in your world?
Just been like, after the biggest, like our biggest thing that's new for us is like, I put like zero effort into like marketing and branding, for like the first 2 years basically. And then like right before IMTS, like it was a last minute decision to even go. And it's like, well, if we're going to go, we should probably think about doing this, and like making sure our messaging and everything is correct and like on point. Like, I mean, just posting on Instagram a lot more has been like surprisingly beneficial, which is good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so we've just been getting like a shitload more leads. IMTS was fucking great. I was like running around that place, talking to everybody I could. I think like the new thing in terms of like where my mindset is at for the company is like, because I really like the machine tool industry. I like want to focus more on doing work with machine tool dealers. Because like we have good success with Selway. I really like working with them. I'm trying to like work out more stuff with methods. We talked to like Washan, like Proper, and like Kitamura. I know like quite a few people in the like that from my methods days, like the VP of sales for Kitamura, somebody like that used to work at Methods. So I like talked to him and stuff. And like, so we're trying to like focus up the business a little bit in terms of, and I guess we also are like, because we're starting to quote like building fixtures more. I'm starting to look at equipment.
Oh, cool. So you just do like third party fixtures for anybody?
Yeah, exactly. Cause like we have a like right now, I mean, it's a feasibility thing. Cause like I was looking at like a couple machines right now, like the methods like MV1000H is like really affordably priced for like a 40x20 machine. Like with a 15,000 RPM spindle and like box Z, it's like it's fucking like 170 grand, like loaded up.
Oh, wow.
Which I was looking at the Haas like VM3, which is like 150 grand loaded up. And it's like, I'd probably go with the Methods machine over a Haas. Really.
Well, I want to say that the VX1000 from Matsura is about that price too. 160, 170.
Oh no, it's way more than that.
The one we bought at my last job was 175, I want to say.
Oh, interesting. The quote that I got like initially was like 215.
Oh, maybe they've jumped the price then, yeah.
But I mean, also like I would be putting it in Utah. So I mean, Selway, I have like a good relationship with them. So like maybe like I always tell people like what my like when I talk about like what my favorite thing is, like favorite machine, like probably Matsura, like for 5-axis and stuff. So it'd be kind of rude of me to be like, I'm gonna go something else. But like I found another Selway customer in fucking Manti, Utah. Manti Manufacturing. Brett Edwards, dude's a monster. He recently, like his biggest customer kind of dropped him and kind of dropped like fucking everybody that they had.
Oh, wow.
And so he's been building our fixtures and he does a great job. And like just quick plug for him is like, if anybody needs like overflow mill work or lathe work, he's fucking open. He does good work. He's fast, really fast. And like hits target prices. It's cool.
That's great. That's really cool. Well, that brings me to the last question I ask every guest every week, which is,
Yeah.
what did you research this week? And it can be anything under the sun. Doesn't need to be manufacturing related. Just what's been popping up in your browser.
Um, that's a good. I mean, generative design has come up a lot this week. And just because of Netflix, like fucking Jeffrey Dahmer has come up a lot.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard very good things about the show.
Yeah, I haven't really watched it. It's just like I'm seeing the memes and stuff, and I'm like, what is fucking going on with this? And so I've been like watching that junk a bunch and or like looking at it and really going into like generative design and things like that. Just and like really just trying to use Fusion more in general. Right now we're like SolidWorks Mastercam guys because
Mhm.
a lot of our customers use SolidWorks and Mastercam, but like you cannot deny that Fusion is like really fucking good for what it is, and that more people are going to start adopting it. And like we use it, but we don't use it like on the daily. So you've
Right.
started to use it more like on a day to day basis to do like little things, especially like if the customer doesn't have Mastercam, then it doesn't really do us any good to do stuff for them in Mastercam because like then they just don't have anything, but they could get Fusion. Like, and
Right.
most of them do use Fusion if they don't have Mastercam. So that's been a big one for us. What have you been researching?
Well, I am currently looking to move personally, and so I've been
Okay.
looking at rentals, which sucks.
Yeah.
Uh, that's been a big thing. And then also I've been doing a little bit of research on GD&T training because I've got a lot more than Brad does, but I really want to get ASME certified in GD&T at the technologist level first,
Yeah.
possibly in the next 6 months or so. And then Brad, I'd really like him to take a course and get much more in depth on it because his last job, they engineered and manufactured all in house, and
Oh,
so they had GD&T, but like I'm sure, as you know, there is a lot of poor implementations of GD&T out there, a lot more than good
dude.
implementations.
Absolutely. Like the episode that I was like just listening to of Within Tolerance, you were going off about, what the fuck was it? Oh, the maximum material condition on datum boundaries and
Hmm.
how that really fucks people up. And I had one guy who, like, he would never give it to you. And it's used heavily in the semiconductor industry. But he would never use it because he's like, oh, well, if I use it, then I have to shift the datum for the whole part and all features. And it's like, why would you do that? Like, it's just to this bolt circle. And he's like, no, 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 I have to shift everything. And so if I do it for this one, then it pulls all the other features out and it's going to be bad. And it's like, that's not how that works really.
Well, I mean, usually you don't have that much datum shift anyway. Like it would be
Yeah.
very hard if you use it. Usually you can afford to have that shift across the board and not really ruin anything. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I've been looking at a few different training classes. One of my customers recommended a company called Geotol, and so
Hmm.
I think Brad and I are going to take their fundamentals, and then I'll probably take their advanced course, and
Yeah.
then I've
I
got a few
have,
books that I need to read through as well
I
before I
have,
take the test.
I have one of the Geotol manuals. It's really good.
Yeah,
Um, Nice. Cool.
yeah.
It's just like
Well,
really diving in deep, dude.
yeah. Well, it's one of those things like where there's not that many people who are actually certified, and like I
Hmm.
deal with so many engineers at such a wide variety of levels that it would be nice to be like, no, no, I'm not perfect, but I am an authority on GD&T. Like we can talk about this. I can tell you, we can work together on these parts because I have a few customers that come to me and they're like, hey, can we make these parts easier to make? And I think if I have something to lean back on like that, I can be like, okay, so let's talk about these tolerances. Let's talk about moving this around. Let's talk about adding some bonus, all that
Hmm.
stuff.
Yeah. That on that it is it's pretty cool. Like I've noticed a lot of it's cool and it's not cool sometimes. Like you see a lot of manufacturers or like AMAT and Lamb for instance. This is like they rely on their sub tiers a lot for engineering, like actual engineering. They'll like throw drawings together or whatever and then shoot them off, and they really want you to like help them, which is nice. But also sometimes like if you don't know that, then you're just like beating your head against the wall. And you're like, this is fucking nuts.
Right.
Like,
You're quoting
why
impossible
is this?
parts.
Yeah. It's like, you want me to hold 30 micron flatness over like 14 inches, like on this part that's like, that's the part that's like skeletonized? Like, why? And like, you just, because it makes it easier for us to assemble the parts if you do that. And it's like,
Right.
that's the reason? Because
Yeah.
it takes you like 5 minutes less to assemble, you son of a bitch. Like, that's
Right,
crazy.
yeah. It's like your $30 part just became like a $10,000 part, just so you know. Like,
Yeah. And they're like, no. It's like, we already quoted us. And it's like, we quoted you 150 micron profile tolerance, not 30 micron flatness. Like, that's a big difference. I did this one bracket for applied materials when I was at South Bay. It was out of Hosteloi, and they had a true position of 0 with the bore and the hole in the middle had plus 2/10 minus nothing tolerance, and they're like,
oh, so even if there was MMC, it wouldn't matter.
yeah, and it's like, and we're like, what? They're like, it's a bracket. And it's like, does it need to be this tight? Like, it's going to be hard to hit. And they're like, well, it's Hosteloi, so you should be able to hit it because of the material. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, that was a nightmare.
We at my first job, the U of A has a really good optical college here. And like Tucson and the surrounding area is known as Optics Valley, kind of like Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. So we've got a ton of optics companies here. But my first job, we would do a lot of work for the optics college for like student projects. And man, there were so many times that like we'd get prints and we'd be like struggling to hit tolerances because everything would be like 4 decimal places. And the engineer would come in and like be like talking to us, asking why things are taking so long. We'd be like, well, we're trying to hit this crazy tolerance. Like this hole is like, plus or minus 3/10 according to your block tolerance. And he goes, oh, that's a through hole for a bolt. I must have accidentally hit 4 decimal places when I did the auto dimensioning. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. He's like, I was wondering why the part was so expensive. And it's like, well, now you know. Like,
yeah, sorry, boss.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Zap, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. I really appreciate it. It's great to get to know your story more, especially after only having like 5 minutes at IMTS to talk. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This was good. I appreciate you inviting me. I had a lot of fun doing this.
And one more time, where can people find you online if they want to find out more about consulting or, any of the stuff that you've talked about?
Yeah. Zap.consulting on Instagram. Our website, ZappettiniConsulting.com, and like Zappettini Consulting on LinkedIn. You could just hit us up. I pretty much I run the Instagram account, so like hit me up. I'll respond to like anybody for any reason if they want to chat. Like no problem. I've been more active on Instagram lately than I have been. Like I was recently talking to Jake Yates about ways to get a live center on his turret. So he doesn't have to pull those fucking things.
Nice.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. If he does it, it'd be cool.
Well, and thank you to all the Patreon members who help support the show. It helps, episodes like this happen. And thanks everyone for listening. And I'll be back next week.